All right, welcome everyone. This is going to be a blog post I have not done in a while, so this is going to be something a little different. So what I've done is I want to look into how do I build an extension for Nintex Workflow Cloud, right? Basically custom actions. Now, one of my colleagues told me that you can do some cool stuff with Microsoft Azure and this concept of function apps. So what we've done is we actually created an app of a function using JavaScript. Now, if anybody's on the video watching this and going, oh my god, this is horrible, what have you done? This is disgusting syntax. I am not a JavaScript developer, far from it. So just letting you know, if there's anything here that looks horrible, it's not my fault. Now, what I've done is I've got a function app called NTX Functions, which has a spelling mistake, so ignore that. And what I actually did is created a function called Cosine. Basically, for those who remember the good old school days of some trigonometry, this is just doing a cosine calculation. If I pass it at an angle, it gives me the cosine value. Now, I've made this in such a way where there can be two ways you can pass data in. So it's a post method. You can either pass the angle as part of the query string or pass the angle as part of the body, right? And then you'll see at the bottom, we've got, if nothing's passed into it, it returns a status of 400 with a message in the body as to what that is. I'm going to tell you a couple of things that I've been kind of learning on the fly here because I've, not super experienced with building this stuff out. So I wanted to show you some of the stuff that I kind of hit. So the first thing is this part here, status is equal to 200. You don't need to do that. I do that just for my own personal, I make sure everything's in there rather than just assuming something's going to work with the default values. That's the only reason I put that in there. Prior to this line here, I actually had none of that. I actually had let's copy this. And I actually just had this. Right now, I wasn't actually able to figure out how do I get just the data in the body back into my custom action. So this is something I recently added. So I have an output called result, and then that's where the data, and then that's the result. It gets stored in some JSON data in a field called result. So that's pretty much it. I made sure I went over here, added some values into here, clicked on run to make sure that it actually worked. So just do a save and run, and you can see the value right here. Right, there's a little run button down the bottom. I can just make sure that works. Okay, now let's go and just have a look at what else I had to do as I was building this out. So under integrate for my cosine function, I made sure I selected select methods. That way I turned everything off except posts. And in this case, I just set it to authorization anonymous. Of course, you'll probably use some sort of security around this, but I just set it to anonymous. I also changed the name of the parameter to angle because that's what's being passed in, but I honestly don't know if that's even being used or not. So like I said, it's just something just for you guys to kind of look into it a little bit further. And I think that's it. That's all I had to do. Okay, now when you go back to NTX functions, and let's see, where did I go into here? Into API definitions. What I did was actually click on this copy URL, because this is, from my understanding, and hopefully you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, is called YAML, which is not something that I believe Nintex Workflow Cloud supports. So what you need is the actual JSON Open API definition. So I actually clicked on copy here, went into here and actually pasted it and ran it. And then I received this. And you can see here, this is actually a JSON packet. Now, one of the things that I just needed to do is actually modify a bunch of stuff in here because the Azure function did not give me everything I needed that's supported in Nintex Workflow Cloud. So I took this and actually went into a Swagger, a JSON validator, JSON kind of parser to make sure that it actually aligns this nicely so I can make the appropriate modifications. Now I'm going to see if I can find that page, and that way I can show you how I did it. All right, so this is the page that I use. It's just a JSON formatter. And so I pasted my my data into here. So let's get rid of that. Into the paste. Click on process, and then there it is right there. Right. Then I could go in here, click Control A, Control C. I could put it into a notepad, and I can start making the appropriate modifications. Right. So things like, what does it produce? What does it consume? The parameters it takes. Replace the description. All that sort of stuff. Remove the security stuff because it doesn't, in my example, I'm not using any security because I just want to really quickly get this up and running. Okay, now, once I did this, I then created this. So that basically took the information that you see here, right? All this Swagger 2.0, all this sort of stuff, the different schemes we support, all that sort of stuff, parameters, etc., responses, and I had to make some modifications to it. So I added things like the description. I went down here, made sure that the path was correct, that it's a post. I added a summary, operation ID, what we produce. So in this case, it's going to be JSON data in and out. And then the parameter that I take. So in this case, it's an angle and it's a number parameter and it's query. Now, hopefully somebody can point me in the right direction, but I changed this to body, and my JSON packet here, or my Swagger definition, became invalid. And I'll show you where I actually went to check whether it's valid or not. I added a description because that's what pops up when you import this into Nintex Workflow Cloud. Excuse me. And then the responses. So this is where I said, this is what the description is. This is strictly just text for anybody who reads this. And then there is a schema for what we're getting back. And in this case, it goes back to the data that comes back, and that is a value called a result, and it's of type number. Right. So that goes back to, if I go back to my function, that is right there, where it's going to be a JSON packet, and I have a value called result, and that's going to be the value there. All right, and notice how I didn't do anything around definitions, which I know you can do, but I haven't tinkered around with that yet. And also the security definitions, which again, I removed those because I'm not going to have any security around this specific example, but of course you probably want to do that if you guys build this out. Okay, now let's go into Nintex Workflow Cloud. Now that we've built all that out, I'm going to go into extensions. Actually, let's go here and then go to extensions. Now I already have that extension in here, right? There's the Cosine. I'm going to show you what it looks like when I import that file. So I'm going to go choose a file. I'm going to select my JSON file. Now, if there's any issues with it, you'll see a big red error right here letting you know that it's invalid. Okay, and if you do have a problem with it being invalid, go to this site. This is called bigstickcarpet.com. They have a Swagger parser, so you can actually come in here, highlight all this, get rid of it, go to your, come on, there we go. Paste that in here, click on validate, and you'll see it does a little shimmer, basically telling you that that is okay. Now I'm going to go in here and change this to body and see if I get the same error. Boom, I get a shimmer, I get an error saying something like no enum match for body at in. Again, I'm learning as I go here, so I change this to query and it works fine. Right? As soon as you get the green, everything is great. You can then import that into Nintex Workflow Cloud. All right, so I've selected my file. I click on next. Right, security, nothing. Go next. So the only difference is I've got my description that came in from my JSON. I need to figure out where I need to modify this so that it actually comes up with the name of my function that I want. Right, so this guy could do cosine calc or something like that, and then you can select an image out of the box image, or you pick your own, which is a 48 by 48 pixel image. All right, I'm not going to go all the way here because I've already done this, and I've already created my extension, so it's right there. And what that means is that I can now go into my workflow and scroll down, and now I have a cosine category, right? Which, in fact, I probably want this to be trigonometry or something like that. And I can drag and drop my action. Notice the icon that I selected. I select this, and I can insert my angle. It can be a variable. I can select a variable type. So I can come up here and say cosine result, decimal, select it, insert, and there it is. One of the things I need to figure out is where we're getting this result. So I'm probably going to have to figure out how to modify my my JSON data to have the correct data. So I just want result or answer or cosine value, something like that in here. So I need to figure that out. So you can see, not that hard to do. When you actually go and use it, I've actually did it with a public web form. I did my cosine calculation where I just hard coded a value in, and then I use this log to instant details to actually log the results. And if I come over here, so if you look at the angle is 30, and you'll see here it said result is 0.154. And if I bring up a calculator, let's see if I even have one that is advanced, because it's been so long since I've done this. There's cosine. So if I do 30 cosine, I get a different value. So that's kind of weird. I need to figure out what that is. But maybe it's in like radians or something like that instead of degrees. That's probably it. Let's try 30. There it is, 0.14154. So that is doing a cosine on a value that it assumes is in radians rather than in degrees. Fair enough. Okay, so hopefully this will give you an idea of how you can easily extend Nintex Workflow Cloud with some custom actions that you build or custom functions that you build in Azure. My next task will be to build something very similar but using C#. So when I click right here for the create new, you can see here I have a number of different functions I can create. I can come down here and actually say I want to create a C# HTTP trigger, and then I'm going to see if I can tinker with that. So if I can get that, I'll do a similar sort of blog video. Hopefully this helps you guys. Gives you a bit of an understanding of how to kind of extend Nintex Workflow Cloud with extensions, because extensions really gives you an easy way using a standard of Swagger or Open API, which is definitely a standard that's out there, to extend Nintex Workflow Cloud. Now this is me building a custom function, but there are a number of there's a lot of REST endpoints out there already that you could actually build an Open API definition for those REST endpoints and import them into Nintex Workflow Cloud. And then you just up and running, have custom action to talk to that other line of business system. With that, I'm going to end this, leave it with you guys to kind of play around, tinker. Let me know what kind of stuff you guys build. It'd be really exciting to see, what's possible with this functionality. Thanks for your time, everybody.